Welcome to the Black Creator Podcast, where we help uplift the Black community through financial education. Have you ever wondered how banks make money? You put your money in the bank, and then you take your money out the bank. Put your money in the bank, take your money out the bank. Like how they make money. So on today's episode, I just want to talk to you about how banks make money. It may surprise you. Interest. So interest is the money you charge someone to lend them money. So let's say if I had $1,000 and you or a person I know needed to borrow $1,000, I might tell them, hey, I'm gonna give you this $1,000, but I need $1,050 back. So that $50 would be considered interest. So they're cool because they got the money that they need at the time. And then I'm happy because I'm $50 richer. This concept is called interest. And so banks make a lot of money off of interest. So there's this system. So if we put let's say we open up a high yield savings account. High yield saving account, they may have 3% interest. And so it's going to grow. Like you put $1,000 in there at the end of the year it'll grow 3%. And so we take $1,000, 3% of 1,000 is $30. So you at the end of the year, the bank will pay you $30 on your $1,000 that you have in the bank account. And so you're like, woohoo, I made $30 this year. So you're happy, but the bank is extremely happy because that same $1,000 that they get from you. Because when you put money in your bank, it doesn't just sit there. The bank will take that money and they will lend that money out to someone else. So in our first example, where we're talking about interest, where the bank gives someone $1,000, where do you think they got that $1,000? From you. Absolutely. They got it from us. When we deposit our money, that's where they used our money for, to lend it out to someone else. So let's say the bank took my $1,000 and they lend it to someone and they say, hey, pay us 5%, or it's normally, let's say a loan, a small loan of $1,000. They're probably putting 10% interest on there, 10 to 20% interest on there, but let's say 10%. So they say, hey, we'll give you this $1,000. You pay us back in 6 months at 10% interest. So you're like, okay, that person's like, okay, yeah. Now this is my $1,000 that I put in the bank account that I'm only making 3% off of. So they put it in there and they say, yeah, sure, I can do that. I can pay you back in 6 months and pay you the $1,100 that I owe you. And so, like I said, the person's happy, the person happy, and the bank is sure enough happy. So in this scenario, the bank has taken my $1,000 and they're going to pay me $30 at the end of the year. But they took my $1,000 and gave it to someone else and made $100 in 6 months. So right now the bank is sitting at about $70 profit. They making money. So now let's say they take that same, because once that person pays them back, they got my $1,000 back. So they have that same $1,000 and someone else in the bank comes in and say, hey, I need $500. And then the other person comes in the bank and say, I need $500. But let's say their credit is really bad. And so if their credit is really bad, they might say, hey, we're going to charge you 15% on $500, and we're going to charge you 15% on $500. So that would be 15% roughly on $1,000 if you add up the two at 15%, and that's roughly $150. So now the bank, my $1,000 that I deposited into you to get the $30 at the end of the year, has now created, let's say, $150 from the second two people who we charged at 15%, and then $100 from the first person. So that money my $1,000 that I put in the bank, they have made $250 from my $1,000. And at the end of the year, they will give me $30. That is how banks make money. That is how banks make a lot of money, because it's the same $1,000 going into rotation. And so if I ever need to go into the bank and I need to deposit and then a lot of times, let me go back. A lot of times when you put it in those type of accounts, you can't withdraw all of it, or you can't withdraw but so much amount. You have to keep a minimum balance. That's the reason you need that minimum balance, because they're using your money to pay other people. And so something you might have heard of from back, and this is banking 101. Like, this is just how banks make money. And so during the Great Depression, or prior to the Great Depression, of course this is going on, and banks would just go under. Like, people, if it was a scare, and people would run to the bank and get all their money out. So the bank has lended to this person, they didn't have enough money, and they would just go under. And if you had any money in that bank, it was gone. Bye-bye. But they came out with something during the New Deal, Roosevelt's New Deal, where he came out with FDIC, which insures your money up to $250,000, which means that the government would come in and then pay for your money if you had, like a lot of money in there and you want to take it out. You have to give them advance notice, but you can at least get it out of the bank. But I'm just giving you a little history lesson there. But yeah, so interest is the main way they make money. Number 2, they do something called capital assistance type thing. They make a lot of money off of doing this. What this is just people who want to get into investing, or people who might have like certain like small businesses or stuff like that. They might offer like financial services for you, financial advisement, financial counseling, these types of things. So they're just making a little money here and there off of those types of services. And it starts to add up. Like, if every stock I buy, they put a commission price on it and stuff like that, it starts to add up. So that's another way. And you got to think about how many customers a bank actually has. So it starts to add up. The last way, or the last prominent way that banks make money, and I feel like we all know about. Like, I think, especially being a podcast geared towards Black people, like, I feel like we've all know this last area that a bank that a bank is making money, and it is fees. I mean, I'm talking about fees on top of fees. In fact, as a matter of fact, some banks have gotten in trouble because they would purposely allow a large transaction to go through, take all your money out of the account, and then hit you with fees for all the smaller transactions that came through, which might have came through a day or two later, because we're talking about authorizations and clearing and all that stuff. But so the bank fees. So I wrote down the stack a couple years ago, might have been last year, but I should have wrote down the date. I apologize. But banks made, I think it was last year, banks made $11.6 billion from fees. $11.6 billion from fees. It just lets you know, like, banks make so much money from fees. Like, it's just a ridiculous amount of money from fees. And it's because of poor financial decisions. That's that money. Like, to me, it's kind of like speeding. Like, to me, a speeding ticket is the worst. It's just like, I feel like it's just wasted money. I feel like anytime I have to pay for a fine or a fee, or it's just wasted money. It was for my own negligence, or for my own slowfulness, or like, had I left the house earlier, I would have not got caught speeding, or had I put that extra dollar in the bank, or had I managed my money better, had I budgeted better. I really despise fees. But by coming to this podcast, we're going to learn how to take control of our money. We're going to learn how to be better with our money, how to understand money, how to grow our money, stick it to the banks. Like, no more fees, no more fees, no more fees. Like, that's just something that bank fees are just crazy to me. And they make so much money off of them, and you think that they will lower them, like $5. No, it's $35 for an overdraft fee. $35 for an overdraft fee. It's like, why? It's just greed. But that's a different story. This has been another episode of Black Wealth Creator Podcast, where we help uplift the Black community through financial education. Remember, getting money is easy, but building wealth takes time and effort. Anybody can do it, especially you. Be blessed.